I just realized I have been muted for quite some time. So if you're someone who's just watching, thank you so much for tuning in. This is Money Matters. So Money Matters is a talk show that happens every Sunday at 3 o'clock. We have not every Sunday, bi-weekly Sundays at 3 o'clock, and we have amazing guest speakers who come in and share their experiences with regards to money. I think if you have been tuning in for our previous episodes, you would have met speakers that we have had on the show. We have had like the head of equity research in HSBC in Asia. We have had people who kind of recently we had someone who's very pro or knowledgeable in terms of how you can craft a career that you want. We have had entrepreneurs, we have had youngsters, teenagers who are students, and how they manage their finances. We kind of had all kinds of speakers on the show. But one of the things that I've wanted to do is kind of have some sessions where I share my personal experiences, and some of you might have seen those episodes where I talk about tracking or savings or my method of managing finances, our recap sessions where we talk about what is the progress towards our financial goals. I like to share some of the things that I have been observing with my work in my clients, and just generally with regards to personal finance, what I have been seeing. I love to share about that as well. But if you guys, I don't know about you guys, but it's extremely awkward to sit in front of a laptop and have a conversation with yourself. So recently I've been having kind of like running this idea through my mind where I would like to see if an AI can interview me. So to kickstart today's session, I think I wanted to introduce our host for today. So my host for today is none other than ChatGPT. I thought it would be exciting to see if I share with ChatGPT as to what is my topic for today, handling big changes in finances, and if I asked ChatGPT for some questions that I could take and answer. I was curious to know what kind of questions it would ask, and see if I would be able to answer them. So if you guys like the idea of ChatGPT interviewing somebody, let me know in the comments. I don't know if you guys have been using ChatGPT. It is the rage all over the world right now, and I think it's a very valid rage to have. AI tools are coming in very fast. There's so many tools doing so many different things, and it can be overwhelming. But I think what helps me to kind of enjoy the process is to find ways and means to have fun with it. So one of the ways I thought of having fun with this whole AI tools and ChatGPT and all of that is by actually using it as part of the Money Matters talk show. So if you guys like the idea, if you think I should have a few episodes every now and then where ChatGPT gives me some questions and I'm answering them, if you think that is a good model to go with, let me know in the comments because I'm doing this for you guys. So I would love to hear what you guys have to say. All right, so let's dive right in. I dropped in the topic for today's session, which is handling big changes in finances. I think this is something that I personally have been experiencing, and a lot of people that I know have been going through big changes in their finances, and it is not easy to handle. There's many things to look out for, and so I dropped this question, and some of the questions that ChatGPT has generated for me, I am so scared to go through them, but I think it'll be very exciting. So the first question that I was asked is none other than big financial changes can be both exciting and challenging. What are some common mistakes people make when faced with a sudden increase in their finances? How can they avoid them? I think a lot of us may not necessarily think of handling big changes in finances as just the bad stuff. I think many of us tend to think of bad problems like, oh, okay, my big change in finances, suddenly I have this new expense that is going to take up my expenses. We may think that is what is typically a big change, but it could also be good stuff, as in your income suddenly increases, or suddenly you have gotten a promotion and you're earning double of what you were earning, or to be more realistic, maybe a few hundred or few thousand more than what you were earning earlier. So I think that is a very good question, in the sense that it's exciting. Yes, it can be challenging, but what are some of the mistakes that people make when there is an increase in finances? I would take it in both angles, both increase in expenses and increase in income. I think the common mistake that I personally have seen among the people that I work with and myself personally as well is that when something big happens and when something new happens, our default step to take is to react. If you are someone who is not used to thinking through things and really making decisions through your intellect, like most of us just react to day-to-day things that is taking place, and we our senses see certain things and we react to that. So if you are someone who's like that and you react to things, just the increase and decrease in finances will also cause you to react. And that's the biggest mistake I've seen with anyone that I've worked with, where you react to the thing. So if it is a good change, in the sense that you have suddenly gotten a promotion, the reaction tends to be, oh, let me find something new to spend on. Oh, I'm not going to touch this money at all because I'm going to save 100% of it. They are very emotionally involved, very emotionally charged when they think of these things, and they get too involved in it. They're very reactive towards the change. So when we're reactive, we tend to fall back on our habit patterns. So if you're the kind of person who's very frugal and doesn't spend money, you would probably do something like that. Or if you're the kind of person who just can spend, no matter how much money you're given, you can finish it. You know how to spend. If you're that kind of person, you'll react in a way where you end up spending more. So we tend to react and we may not be aware of it. So I think that's the biggest mistakes that I've seen. And to kind of preempt this, it is important for you to work with someone who is not in your situation, who is not being affected by your financial situation. So let's say someone, it could be a financial coach, it could be a friend, it could be a mentor, but basically someone who is not affected by whether you make money or not, or whether you spend money or not. And they will be able to kind of give a more objective view on what is taking place. But the other big mistake or common mistake that I have seen uh, in that scenario is that because you're so reactive, because you've gotten so involved in the situation, when people do advise you or kind of give you a different perspective, it is hard to remain objective. So I think that is one of the biggest common mistakes that I have seen, reacting to whatever the situation, whatever the change may be, and not having the right people around you to make you or get you to think objectively. So, if you are someone who, freaks out about good stuff, bad stuff, doesn't matter what stuff, you should definitely have someone who can kind of bring in the check and balance for you instead. So yeah, that was the first question. I personally think it's a brilliant question. It's an important question. And I think what we should probably talk about next is the not so good stuff. So the next question that ChatGPT had, which I think is very good, is many people find themselves in difficult financial situations due to unexpected events like job loss or medical emergencies. So, how can individuals effectively cope with the sudden changes or downturns or reduction in your income in a way, and take control of your finances again? Um, this is a very good question. Some of you may be experiencing it right now, but I think one of the timings that I really saw a lot of people face this situation was at the beginning of the pandemic, which feels like it was a very, very long time ago, but it genuinely wasn't. So, if you guys recall back 2020, the year where all of us were stranded in our respective homes and had to use StreamYard and YouTube and all these other Zoom and all these other tools to actually stay connected, one of the things that I faced with a lot of my clients was that many of their financial situations started to get worse. A lot of them could not do the work they were doing. I had tutors who were used to doing classes in people's homes or in cafes outside, basically. They could not do their classes anymore, so they were stuck at home. I had people who were artists who were able to kind of like provide art services or art classes and all of that. They were unable to do what they do. I had friends who were in the travel industry where the whole industry was shut down and there's literally nothing taking place. So a lot of people were facing the whole issue of loss of income, and it is scary to go through a sudden shock where you did not anticipate it. It's not like you knew you were gonna kind of something was gonna go bad. Nobody was expecting it. None of us knew that you would take so long. In fact, I recall back the first lockdown that we had here in Malaysia. it was announced as 2 weeks of lockdown, and I genuinely believed that it would only be 2 weeks, but in fact, it took us 2 years to come out of it. So it was a very scary situation, and I think to be able to cope and handle this, the first thing is, of course, like I mentioned earlier, avoiding the reaction is absolutely important. But the one that I've actually seen really be helpful for most of us is preempting all of this by having your finances in order. And what I mean by that is two things mainly. One of it is being aware of your financial situation regardless of what it is right now. For example, you could be having a regular job, you're paying your monthly bills, everything is going fine, you have your savings taking place. Many times, some of us may not exactly know what our finances are like. We may not be checking into each of our bank accounts to have an awareness of how much funds we have, how much emergency funds we have, how much investment funds we have. We may not be that aware of all these things. So if you're someone who's not aware and something negative takes place, like you lose your job or a medical bill comes up, it will create more fear because you have less information in your mind to process and find out a solution. So it is important for us to take the step now itself before something goes wrong, to keep an eye on our finances. So if you guys don't track your finances, if you guys don't spend time at least once a month to check in to your money and see, where do I have money? Do I have enough money? Do I How much savings do I have? How long can it last me if anything goes wrong? If you're not doing that check, I think that is something you should definitely do. Just being aware of your current situation at all times will help you to kind of have enough information to find a appropriate solution for your situation. If you don't know what you have or what are the debts you have and what are the savings you have, you will struggle in terms of managing your finances again. So I think that is the kind of the most important part I see. And I think the second effect way to effectively cope with it is to after you have kind of established, like, okay, I have enough funds to maybe handle the situation for 2 months, then it is to focus back on solving the problem. So many times, like, we may have lost our jobs, and it is easy for us to say that, hey, I've lost my job, I can't do anything, I'm at a disadvantage. But the ones I did see, or people that I worked with who did well or were able to come out of this situation, were the ones who were willing to look at solutions. So they were creative enough to think, okay, what are the other skills that I have? What else can I do to kind of earn enough money to cover my expenses? And they were willing to be creative and open with the ideas that they actually managed to solve their problems at the end of the day. So keeping an open mind and finding solutions is very important. One of the things that I did, for example, my income was also affected during the pandemic. I also struggled a lot, and one of the things that, now that I look back, it sounds crazy that we even did it, is cater food for people. We were kind of like cooking very enthusiastically during the pandemic, and some of my friends who may not have the ability to cook the meals that they want to eat, and were kind of bored of ordering in from all these same restaurants that exist nearby our area. So they requested us to cook some meals and all of that. And I thought that was a brilliant idea, and we actually cooked some meals and kind of shared it with our friends, and that helped me in a way to cover my expenses and help me handle my situation in terms of my finances. So being open-minded, being creative is extremely important. I think it makes a huge change at the end of the day. So, if you guys have any questions with regards to handling big changes in finances, drop it in the chat box. I would love to answer your questions. And let me know if you guys think ChatGPT is asking me good questions, because I think it's challenging me and it's giving me questions that I enjoy answering. But I would love to know what you guys think. Do you think this is a good way to go about for a talk show? Are we discovering something new here? Let me know. All right, so let's take the third question. When experiencing a significant increase in income, such as promotion or inheritance, what steps should someone take to ensure they make most of this opportunity and manage their newfound wealth responsibly? I'm very amazed that ChatGPT decided to ask me this question, because I think it is something that I thought I would never encounter, but I did end up encountering in my life as a financial coach. And I never thought this would be an issue for people. So many times you may end up with an inheritance where you suddenly now have to guide people to figure out what they're going to do with this large sum of money that has landed on you. If you are someone who ends up in this situation, um, you need to be very aware that this is something that needs to be taken care of seriously. Because if we are someone who has never handled such large sums of money, it's like going to a gym when you have never even walked. Like, you don't walk, you don't exercise. The word exercise freaks you out, like it freaks me out. And next thing you know, the next day you decide you're going to go to the gym and you're going to lift the heaviest weight they have there. If you do that, high chances you're going to injure yourself very, very badly, because your muscles are not used to that situation. And when you're thrown into that situation, your body would not know how to cope with it, and it's going to break down. Same thing with, for example, your car. Let's say you've never driven past 100 kilometer per hour in your vehicle, and one day you decide, I'm going to hit 200 kilometer per hour. As a driver, you have never, driven your car at that speed. There's high chances it's going to end badly, because you do not have the right reflexes, the right skill to manage that speed. So ending up with a sudden inheritance or a large sum of money when you have never handled such a large amount will definitely, shock your system. And if you do not handle it appropriately, you're probably going to make some really, really big mistakes with regards to that. So I think, what are some of the steps that you should take when you do uh, end up with such large sum of money? How do you manage this opportunity well? I think the first step that you need to take is find someone who has experience managing a large sum of money. And again, just like I always say with regards to getting financial advice, try to get it from people who may not have a stake in that situation, because the moment you have a stake in it, the emotions are very different. So getting advice from someone who knows how to handle such a large sum of money, and but making sure that they do not have a stake in it, is very, very important. I actually experienced a friend of mine who ended up with an inheritance, and she's someone who has never dealt with such large sums of money. So we used to have like meetings, and we'd be like discussing, okay, this is some of the things that you can do. For example, you could choose to pay off this loan that you have pending. You can choose to, you can choose to invest some of the funds into this particular fund or this particular type of saving. You can choose to have some emergency funds. Now, as I'm working with this particular person and I'm suggesting all these different things, uh, they may not necessarily see the importance of those things in their current situation. So you might be getting advisors to put some money aside for savings, put some money aside for investment. Most of it is going to go for your future. It may be frustrating to hear that none of it is going to, or less of it is going to benefit you at this point in time, like satisfy your current exciting needs that you may have. And it may trigger some frustration with regards to the situation. This is where you need to learn how to breathe and take it easy and look at a longer term. It is very, very important to keep a longer term horizon when it comes to this kind of situation. I've had individuals that I've met and heard of, where they receive an inheritance and they immediately take this money and buy a new car or buy a new house, and they're spending the whole sum of inheritance that they get onto something big that currently satisfy their needs. But then few years down the road, they have another important need, a life event that is taking place, and they need a large sum of money. And they look back and they see none of their financial decisions were for the longer term purposes. They were all made for the current satisfaction of their things. So when you're continuously making decisions for now and not for your future, you would not necessarily have the right resources at the right time. So if you are ending up in this opportunity where you receive an inheritance, find somebody you can rely on, an objective person with no stake, and keep a longer term vision. Life is good, yes, but there is always ups and downs. There may be challenges that you may not even think is possible to be a challenge in your life. It may come up. So it is good to keep at least some of it for your future users so that you can handle it more wisely in a way. So yeah, let me see. Anyone, any comments in the chat box? If you have any questions about money, I decided, I told ChatGPT, all these questions sounds great. I'd love to answer them, but my audience is teenagers, so what should I talk about if I am talking to teenagers? And this is a question that ChatGPT suggested when I brought up the fact that most of my audiences are teenagers, and I thought it was very interesting, and it's something we should talk about, which is most of most of the teens do face one of the biggest financial decisions that you may face or you may not know you're facing, but it is a big financial decision, is actually your education. Many times, like for example, when I was done with my high school education, I had to choose what am I going to study when I'm done with school. So I'm done with my form 5, or some of you may call it high school. You're done with your SATs, whatever your examination may be. After you're done with that, what is next? And I think this decision of what is next actually has a lot of implication on our finances, even though we may not be as aware of it. Do you go to a college? Are you going to pursue a diploma and a degree? Are you going to try out for scholarships, or did you not do well enough to get scholarships, so you're going to try to take it up as with a private, with a student loan? How are you going to make your education happen? Or are you going to like work on a job first and then you're going to go into education when you have saved up enough? Or are you going to balance both by having a part-time job and studying? These are very, very difficult decisions, and it's kind of funny for someone. As a youngsters, we may not learn about money in school, but then you make one of the biggest decisions you make right after school is education, which affects your finances a lot, especially in this era where the cost of education is very high. But it's just so weird that we're not learning how to manage it earlier. So let's say if you are a 17-year-old kid in Malaysia, you're done with your SPM, you're now going to enter into your tertiary education, and you're thinking, what do I do? So it is important to be aware of the financial implication as much as the other implications as well. So, for example, let's say you're going to pursue just apply into a university, any course that you can get, as long as it's going to be paid for or partially paid for, or scholarship, as long as I'm doing something that is paid for and I don't need to pay for it, I'm good. The implication of it is going to be that you might, highly likely, you might end up in a course that you are not passionate about. And I have seen many people who pursue courses that they're actually not passionate about, and it ends up wasting a lot of time in their life. So spending 4 or 5 years to complete their degree, and they come out, they're not passionate about that field, and now they have just wasted a ton of money pursuing that course. Or I've also met some people who go into tertiary education, college and universities, because that is the thing to do. Oh, you're done with your high school, you have to go into a college now. And because it is the thing to do, they are forced, or they are under pressure to choose something, any course that would work. And many people go into courses not with proper research being done, with no awareness of what that career might be like, and they may take up this course. Let's say if you're someone who's going to finance it with a student loan, then you're going to end up with a 20-year loan after that whole education is done, for something you were never passionate about. Or let's say you are fortunate and your parents have saved up enough, and they consider paying for your education. Then you are spending the money that is hard earned by your parents for so many years on causes that, well, that's just doesn't interest you. So it is a very, very big impact. If you're someone who is going to be taking in student loans, I think it is very, very important to be aware of the terms and conditions. I know people who took student loans and they are like 30 years old right now, and they still do not know the terms and conditions of their student loan. So, right, you need to be aware of things such as, when is it repayable? Do you start repaying it the moment you graduate, or do you have like a grace period? And if you do get a grace period, how long is it? You need to know what is the interest rate, how much interest you're going to be paying, how long are you going to be paying this loan, what is going to be the monthly repayment, if you choose to pay back the loan faster, what are the implications. There are many many questions to ask about your student loans. We have had an episode where we had a speaker who paid off 50,000 ringgit worth of student loans in less than 14 months. That is 1 year, 2 months, guys. It is ridiculous. But we had a guest speaker who had successfully done it, and we speak a lot in depth about loans and how do you identify the important information and how do you make the payment and kind of get your loans payment done. So if you guys are interested to watch that episode, you should check it out. It's in the Money Matters playlist that we have on our channel. All right. So I think that is one big decision that you may make as a teenager that should keep an eye out for. And yeah, thank you, ChatGPT, for asking a very, very important question about our education. All right. So I think I would like to slowly bring in to a close. We need to find out many interesting ways to do these ChatGPT interviews. I would love to have like an AI character right here interviewing me. If you guys are familiar with AI tools and you feel like you know how to make this happen, drop it in the chat box. I would love to experiment and figure out how to make this happen. So last but not least, one final question from ChatGPT, our good old friend. Managing finances can be especially challenging for teenagers who are just starting to navigate the world of money. What are some essential financial skills and habits that teenagers should develop early on to set themselves up for financial success in the future? As the host of this talk show, Money Matters, I have interviewed too many people, not too many people, a lot of people. And one of the questions that I like to ask them is, what is one principle with regards to money that you hold close to your heart that you have been applying consistently for the past whatever many years? And I think this question also brings up that whole, what are some of the skills and habits you should have? I think for me personally, the biggest lessons that I've had with regards to money is you need to take more responsibility as a teenager. If you want to kickstart your financial journey well, take responsibility for your existence. So when I was slightly above teenagehood, I was a young adult. I think one of the things that I struggle with is understanding how much my lifestyle actually costs. So we may be lucky to have a kind of lifestyle that is supported by our parents. When we are teens, we are supported by our parents. We have the things that we need, the resources that we need is all prepared for. And we may not be aware of how much all of this costs. So, and you may have a very skewed perception of the world if you don't know what it costs. So I think the first thing I would do is start finding out, what does it cost to live the life that I live right now. So for example, if I live in my parents' home, how much does it cost to live in the home? Do you know the utility rates? Do you know how much groceries cost? Do you know how much the mortgage or the rent costs in your area? uh, how much are your parents spending to take care of the household things that you are actually using? You are a user of it. Some of us may have phones, devices, laptops, phone bills, and all these tech related things that we use, and we are very, very passionate about them, and we want to have some of the latest devices and all of that. It's good to find out how much these things actually cost and how much of work goes into supporting that lifestyle. So finding out what is it and slowly beginning to take charge of these areas of your life will actually be one of the most important or probably the best things you can do, because the more responsibility we take over our lives and taking managing our finances, and the earlier we do it as teens, I think we will develop very, very essential skills, because we will create or have or develop a sense of respect for the money, a sense of understanding of what is taking place. So if you're a teenager, I wish you guys all the best. Please do go and check it out. Check out, find out what your lifestyle costs, and start thinking of ways and means as you grow up on how you're going to support this, because the more you think about it, you're going to generate a lot of creative ideas. It's going to bring you on paths that you probably would never go, and it's going to educate you a lot. Like have run my several businesses. Like I work on my outsource accounting, I've written my book, I run my show, I've developed this youth organization called Ascendance. All of these ideas came also because I was trying to understand how can I be more independent. So it drives tremendous growth in us, and I wish and I hope that you guys will also take that step and try to understand where you come from. So that is it for today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. I enjoyed having a conversation with you guys. If you like this today's episode, drop it in the comments. I would love to know what you guys have to say. If you think it's a horrible idea to do a AI generated question interview, then let me know in the comments as well. You guys can check out my book Money Matters. If you're interested to buy it, please let me know. You can contact me on my social media platforms, Instagram at the Real Madura, to purchase your copy. All right, thank you so much, and I'll see you guys at the next episode.